The Disaster Artist is a 2017 independent film from A24, which has slowly become one of my favorite movie studios, especially with the past couple of years coming out with great movies like, let me think of the ones that they do. Oh yeah, Ex Machina and Moonlight. Those are two of their best films that they've come out with in the past couple of years. And this tells the behind-the-scenes story of the making of The Room, a film that is considered one of, if not the worst films ever made. And in The Disaster Artist, an aspiring actor named Greg Sestero, who actually wrote the novel that this movie's based off of, meets up with this new guy that he meets, Tommy Wiseau, who is another aspiring actor who refuses to talk about himself in any way, including where he's from and where he's gotten all the money that he has and stuff like that. When the two struggle to find work in Hollywood, they both come up with the idea of making their own movie, and because Tommy has basically a bottomless pit worth of money, they actually decide to make the movie. And Tommy comes up with the entire screenplay for The Room, which obviously he wrote, but also he planned on directing, producing, and starring in. And Tommy looks at this movie as a serious drama, and this isn't a spoiler since it's a true story and a lot of people know about this, but once he starts seeing how everybody's reacting at the premieres, let's just say, for all of us who know what The Room is, it didn't really end up being a serious drama. It ended up being a movie that was unintentionally funny throughout. Now, before I actually get into my review of The Disaster Artist, I just want to go ahead and point out that I'm a huge fan of The Room. It's horrible, but it's really something that you have to watch really to see because it's really spectacular. And as I said, I absolutely love the film. I know that it's bad, but it's like a real guilty pleasure of mine. And actually, a fair bit of my channel is actually inspired by The Room. In fact, part of my actual rating system is inspired by The Room. Instead of saying that I'm giving a film no reels, because I do, you know, 0 to 5. Instead of saying 0, I tell it that I gave it the rating of Tommy Wiseau, and then I show this.
I did not hit her. It's not true. It's bullshit. I did not hit her. I did not. Oh, hi, Mark.
And in case you're a little bit confused, that scene right there is considered one of the worst acted scenes ever, really, in film. And seriously, I suggest that you guys watch The Room if you haven't already. If you just type it up in your YouTube search column, you'll find it. There's a lot of copies on YouTube, and a lot of them are pretty good, but I do suggest going, or even if you know that you're gonna love it, just buy the DVD. Hell, I actually really want to buy the DVD. And then when you're done with The Room, and if you really enjoyed it, go check out The Disaster Artist. Okay, now on to the actual review. James Franco portrays Tommy Wiseau and also directs The Disaster Artist, which is kind of ironic because, as I said, Tommy went on to direct The Room as well as starring in it. James is phenomenal as Tommy, and just in his introduction scene, I could tell that I was in for a treat, that I was getting ready to see something really special. And in every scene after that, he completely steals the show. He's super hilarious, but it's not in the way that I really expected. I was expecting the film to initially just be a film that was going to poke fun at The Room as well as Tommy himself as a person, and focus just a lot of attentions on those scenes from The Room that we all know and love. You know, like, "You're tearing me apart, Lisa!" Or, "I did not hit her. That's bullshit. I did not hit her. I did not." "Oh, hi, Mark." Or, "I'm fed up with this world." I think I do a pretty good Tommy Wiseau impression. But while James gives a very hilarious performance, he doesn't treat it as though he's actually trying to be funny. He's playing Tommy in a very serious way. It's just that, you know, what he's actually saying is being unintentionally funny, which is basically who Tommy is. He's a very serious person, but a lot of the shit that he says comes across as, you know, hilarious. James's brother, Dave Franco, portrays Greg Sestero. He's actually the main character of the story. I mean, as I said earlier, Greg Sestero was the one who wrote the novel that this is based off of, So he really is the main character of the movie, and we get to see most of the film through his perspective, and I'm actually glad that while the focus was on Tommy quite a fair bit, it wasn't solely focused on him, and Dave did a really good job in his role. The supporting performances overall were really good, especially with Seth Rogen as one of the... I think he was the script supervisor is what it was, and then he ended up being the director for the movie whenever Tommy wasn't actually behind the camera and he was on the set acting. And actually, my favorite performance was Zac Efron. I had no idea that he was in this movie, and he's in a very small role, and I won't spoil who exactly he is playing in the film, just in case you have seen The Room and you're like, oh my god, who is it that Zac Efron is playing? But he has a standout scene in the film. The moment that you see him, he completely steals the entire scene. He was fantastic. He just shows up and starts doing his thing, and meanwhile, when that happens, I'm sitting in my seat with my back pressed up against the seat, and I'm just looking up at the screen like, oh my god, this is fucking amazing! As I mentioned earlier, I was worried that this would be primarily a comedy, showing us the making of The Room, but taking a solely comedic approach. And while it really is a comedic movie, there's a lot of drama-filled moments, and what I got was a very endearing film about two guys who had a dream and actually went out to accomplish their dream. It just wasn't in the way that they were expecting, and it even gets viewers to realize that a good film, and even a successful film, and hell, even the worst film ever made, is really hard to make. And these two are successful simply because they were able to make a movie when many others have tried, and probably even more than those many others haven't even gotten a project off the ground or even close to production. Tommy Wiseau is one of Hollywood's biggest mysteries, mainly because he doesn't talk about his personal life in his interviews. Anytime that somebody asks him a personal question, he just basically brushes it off. We don't know where he's from, although he claims that he's from New Orleans, but with that accent, there ain't no fucking way. He is not from New Orleans. There's no way he's a Cajun, even though he hasn't said a Cajun, but I think that'd be the closest. Also, he's never explained where he got all of his money, because he financed The Room himself, and that was $6 million. So, yeah, that's a little bit weird. And the film does a very admirable job of trying to give us as many answers as possible, as well as showing us that Wiseau is a human being. One thing that happened during the movie, and this isn't really a spoiler because this is based off of a true story, and a lot of people do know this if they've ever followed any kind of film following. But when The Room's premiere happened, they showed bits of the movie throughout in the film when that was happening, but it was redone by the Disaster Artists cast. Tommy actually figures out how the audience actually feels about it, because he's sitting there taking everything seriously and everybody's laughing around him. He actually believes that they're making fun of him and that they think he has a horrible movie and they're laughing straight at him. He runs out of the theater room, and what we see after that broke my fucking heart, because I was sitting in there, I was sitting in the theater room laughing at what they were showing, because it was like they were showing a lot of the iconic scenes from The Room that I love, and I was laughing along. But when they show Tommy in the foyer of the theater crying his eyes out because he feels like the world hates him and that he did a shitty job in making this movie, which, you know, you could argue that he did. I don't know, it was amazing, because later he realizes that they were really being entertained by the movie. It wasn't in the way that he wanted, but they were being really, really entertained. But the scene did two things for me. Number one, as I said, it did actually make me feel bad that I was laughing along with the audience in the movie at all of these things. And two, it makes Tommy an even more relatable character, seeing as he's vulnerable just like anybody else and just wants to be loved by others, and he wants the things that he creates to be loved by others. I was almost to tears in that scene because of how well James Franco pulled off the performance just in that scene, and Like, hell, Mallory was sitting right next to me on my right, and she was bawling her fucking eyes out. I was trying so hard not to cry in this, because I had already cried the other day for The Last Jedi. I was not in the mood to cry again. Hell, you know what? I was even embarrassed at the fact that I used Tommy Wiseau, I used his name as my lowest grade on my channel. Hell, I still feel bad about that. You can tell that James Franco is a true fan of The Room because they made it so that a lot of the recreations of scenes from the film were very similar, even to the point of where it had the same sort of editing and framing and cinematography. Hell, the one scene involving Denny when he's on top of the rooftop after, I'm trying to remember the character's name, I think it was Chris R. He puts a gun to his head, and Tommy and Greg take him off to jail, which takes like 3 minutes for some reason. It's the one where Lisa and Lisa's mom are talking to him, talking about, like, why was he trying to kill you? The framing in the shot is off-center like the original one, and it's like cutting off a bit of Lisa's head, and I thought, oh my god, this is amazing! I do have one minor flaw with the movie, and it's the fact that a lot of the minor characters, the actors who played the actors in the room, don't get a lot of screen time, and we don't really get any kind of, like, even minor focus on a lot of them. Like, I was really looking forward to seeing Josh Hutcherson play the guy who played Denny in The Room, but he gets very little screen time, and it really made me sad because I really wanted to see something, because we started off with Zac Efron's character, who, again, I will not spoil who he is, but it's brilliant. After seeing that, I was like, can I get one for Lisa? Can I get one for Denny? Can I get one for that lawyer guy who's friends with Mark and Johnny, who I actually forgot his name. In the end, The Disaster Artist is simply awesome. This is a great film to watch if you're a fan of The Room, or if you really love seeing any kind of behind-the-scenes documentary sort of feel, but you want to see it in a movie form of something that happened in Hollywood or just in history in general. And this will definitely be nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay at the Oscars, but I do believe that there is a chance. I mean, I think that James Franco is going to be nominated for Best Actor. I don't know if he'll win, but I know that he will be nominated. I mean, I just have a feeling in my bones. And you know what? I actually think Disaster Artist could be nominated for Best Picture. I don't know. We'll see in the next month or so. I am going to give The Disaster Artist 4.5 reels. Well, that'll do it for me today. Please subscribe if you haven't already for more reviews and content. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and farewell until the next video.